More. Hello, everyone. Welcome. It's Wednesday, May 20th. How is it? Almost June. I asked that when it was almost May. Welcome, everyone, to today's Lunch and Learn Playwriting Prompt. On behalf of the Primary Stages and ESPA family, I welcome you. Anyone who's returning, anyone who's new today to this playwriting prompt, this Lunch and Learn. For those of you who are new to us, Primary Stages is an off-Broadway theater company located in New York City. And ESPA, the Einhorn School of Performing Arts, is the school for emerging and established artists that is part of Primary Stages. Right now, we are so excited to continue to connect with you virtually. We do miss being in the studio with you, but Zoom makes it possible for us to have lunch together every Wednesday, and it's pretty great. My name is Kelly Letourneau. I'm the ESPA Student Services Associate. You received an email today from me or yesterday confirming this Lunch and Learn. If you have any questions about Primary Stages or ESPA, you are always welcome to send me an email. My email address
no wonder I can't hear.
kelly@primarystages.org. And I am so excited. Today we have Primary Stages family member and artist, Mary Bacon, with us. Hi, Mary.
Hi, thanks for having me.
How you doing? We're so excited to have you. Mary is a New York City-based actress. She was recently seen as Patty and Jessica Blank, Eric Jensen, and Steve Earle's Coal Country, and as Susan Turner in Nothing Gold Can Stay by Chad Beckham. This year, and in just 11 days, the Drama Desk has recognized Mary with the Sam Norkin Award for her continued versatile career of compassionate, fearing work for such companies as the Mint, Primary Stages, the Public, the Actors Theater Company, and two of Off-Broadway's most humane performances this season, Coal Country and Nothing Gold Can Stay. Mary has worked with so many wonderful directors and playwrights and actors over her career, and is really, I've been witness to her work, and I think she is an example of compassion and community in this industry and business. She's performed in world premieres of new plays both in and out of New York City, notably co-starring in Charles Bush's New York Times critic pick, The Tribute Artist, in the Public's production of Michael John LaChiusa and Sybil Pearson's musical Giant, directed by Michael Greif, in A.R. Gerde's Children at Williamstown Theater Festival and on Broadway, and Tom Stoppard's Rock and Roll. At Primary Stages, we have been lucky enough to have Mary in Horton Foote's Harrison, Texas, Motherhood Out Loud, and in New York Times critic pick, Happy Now. Mary also is an artistic leader, and along with Heidi Armbruster, she founded the Dorset Theater Festival Women Artist Writing Group. And their mission, as a diverse group of mid-career female actresses and theater artists, their purpose is to meet the whole female theater artist where she is at as a writer, providing resources and support as she works to either discover her own voice or works towards completing a writing project. Writing gives agency to female theater artists. And I think it's really incredible that Mary has dedicated herself to a life on the stage and on the page. And we are so excited to have you with us today, Mary. Mary, where are you reaching us from today?
I am up in Vermont. I actually came up here to do a show with Carl Forsman, who used to run the Keene Company. And he was artistic director at the Dorset Theater Festival, which is this theater that's really been around for a very, very long time. In fact, Primary Stages, a while ago, before I was ever around, used to do like a writing colony up here, and there was it's kind of astounding, its history. It's this old, it's a summer theater, and I came up here to do June Moon. Oh my God, my brain, Kaufman play, Kaufman and Hart, I think. I could be wrong, but he loved it, so it was this old timey play, and I fell in love with just the area, and it was inexpensive. And so Andrew and my husband is the artistic director at Primary Stages. And I was like, look, I keep finding it. We found a place way south because the theater area is very expensive. And we found this place way south for nothing. And we were like, will we really be driving up here all the time? Is this really dumb? Um, that same, it blows my mind, you guys, now, because that same, at that time when I was doing the play, there was a playwright who lives across the street from the theater named Teresa Rebeck. And there was this amazing woman named Dina Janis who asked me to do a reading of a Teresa Rebeck play while I was up here. And Dina, I was so impressed with her. I asked her out to lunch. I just wanted to know who she was. And she had roots in the Labyrinth Theater Company. She was a founding member, and she was teaching at Bennington, and she was amazing. And I was like, wow. And the next summer, she took over running the Dorset Theater Festival. And suddenly there was a lot more, her programming was just astounding. And she's produced, she's had partnerships with Primary Stages. And I ended up working here a lot more than I ever planned to. So it was just kind of like, you never know what happens. It's all these connections you guys make. You never know. So it's kind of astounding. That was like 10 years ago. So that's kind of why I'm up here. And when the shutdown happened, we just came up here, not knowing that nobody could join us for a while. But so that's where I am right now, where I've been.
Well, I'm glad you are safe and have some beautiful nature to look at.
Yeah.
So, friends who are on the call, we're structuring today a little differently. We're going to start with a little bit of a prompt, and then we're going to go into our Q&A section, and then we're going to go back to writing towards the end again. So this is a multi-part prompt. We're going to get a little bit now and a little bit later. So Mary, I turn it over to you to take us through those lists.
Okay, so this is going to be a list prompt. I've used this and it's very fun. So I want you to come up with just a list of as many lies as you've ever told, either to a lover, a parent, or teacher. And you can lie about your lies if you want. Here are some lies that I'm telling you, like I always love waffles. I didn't see you there. I have horns. You can, whatever lie you want to write down, but really probably the best ones are the ones you're really embarrassed about and wouldn't want to tell anybody. And that's it for right now. So that's your first prompt. And as you write them now, you might be like, I think over the course of this hour, you might get a little more brave and think of one. Because often when I'm put on the spot, I can't think of anything. But you might come up with one in a little bit when we'll give you the second part of this prompt. Okay?
Wonderful. So I'm going to put 5 minutes on the clock for us all to write down those lies. And then I'll let you know as we go along how much time you have left. So here goes, 5 minutes on the clock. All right, we are at our 5 minutes. Great. I hope you all have nice, juicy lists of lies. I know I do. So I always like to start at the beginning with these Q&As. So my question to you is, how have you found yourself in this? How have you come to be both actor and like artistic leader in the writing world?
Well, that's how have I found myself to be both? Um, you know, I've been acting for quite some time, and I had something that occur in outside of the acting world. I had something occur in a parent group that I've attended, and it was just this thing that I heard, and it struck me so much. And I was writing about, I was learning about, I was taking workshops on racism, and there was a lot I didn't know, and so I was just in this group, and I just had to write about it, but I didn't really. I was like, I gotta give this a voice, and it just involved like two people who were opposite, and I could empathize with both. And I thought, and it anyway, this is like this play that I started writing, but I was thinking about it, and I took my first I took a little writing workshop, and I was doing a reading with Heidi Armbruster, and I didn't know her very well at the time. Even though she's worked at primary, even when she was working at primary, I didn't know her that well. I happened to be up at Chautauqua Theater Festival when she had her first a workshop of Dairyland, which was produced this fall at Playmakers Rep. Am I right about that?
Mm-hmm.
And she but anyway, I didn't know her very well. I think people, we were contemporaries, but I just didn't know her that well. But I don't know what made me. We were just talking afterwards, and I said, I want to start a group. And she said, I've started a lot of writers groups because I knew I needed support. That's what I knew. I knew I just couldn't do it by myself. I don't know why I've known that about myself, but I knew that if I just tried to go off and write by myself, and maybe it was partly because I had taken a writing workshop that I knew that I got so much help, just even from people, encouragement, which you usually will get. I think that's actually the main thing to get from a writing group is encouragement. Honestly, I think it's probably the most important thing. So she said, she said, I've created a lot of writing groups. She said, I think she said it just doesn't mean anything without institutional support. And I was like, I think I know somebody who would give it to us. And so I wrote to Dina, and she's like, yes. I didn't even have to say much. And she's like, yes. And so that's how it started. And we just did a little retreat. I mean, it was really, it's still pretty ad hoc, but that's all it was. And different people have come in and out of the group. We just curate it ourselves. But it was really just to give myself support to keep going, rather than, but I've also done that a lot with acting, if I'm honest. I've always, not all actors are like this. And I don't know if any of you are actors. I'm sure some of you, or at least some of you are. But I pursued classes as soon as I got to New York, partly because it wasn't like, it wasn't, well, I think probably this is everyone's experience. You think it's just yours, but like, there's not like anyone like handing out, how to do this. And I read all the books, I remember buying books on how to do this and reading them, but it helped me give me a structure. Like in my head, I was like, okay, I'll be non-equity for 5 years. Because the main thing was not so much that like the commitment to do it is not going to be given to you by anybody else. It's almost like the how is not as important as the commitment to, I'm going to figure out how. I have no idea how, but I'm going to figure that out. And once I made that commitment, it was just easier. if that makes any sense. But I don't know, there's a million ways to skin a cat, you know? And I think that definitely applies to this career, I guess I could say, because it's so up and down, you know, it's so up and down. And it will continue to be, I can promise you that. But that's how I started with the writing. And I had explored just writing before. But it was really something that I had to like get out because it just struck me. And then all of my feelings about what I was learning about ended up being kind of, you know, embodied in this one character, even though she wasn't me. And maybe that's what gave me freedom to express them. So yeah, does that answer the question?
It totally answered the question. So this passion for writing, or this need to explore writing, is born out of these questions, these huge life experiences. And I'm really responding and resonating with the need for a group. Both, I feel like, as actors and writers, I feel like getting into this profession, you have to be in, if you're in it for the long haul, you have to be in it for like the community aspect. Yeah. So that really, it just resonates with me.
Good.
How do you deal with the up and down mentally and emotionally?
Lots of different ways. I mean, I'm like, I'm so old. I've done this for so long. I forget that because I always feel like a beginner. I really do. Like, even when you read out like what I've been a part of, it's all true. But I also remember being in those situations like, am I really a part of this? Am I a part, you know? And not everyone feels like that. I tend to be that kind of person. Like, it's funny because these questions were asked, they asked me to answer these questions for this Drama Desk Award. And they're very similar. Like, what does it mean to be part of the New York theater community? And I was like, am I a part of the New York theater community? You know, like there's always this feeling of it being on the outside, looking in this glass, like, and I think that a lot of people have that experience. And I would just say, just to know that it's very normal. I mean, I'm also like that we're all kind of freaks, you know. That's what being, you know, it's a crazy thing to want to do. Um, and it's like, even at this time when it's like the idea of an essential worker, what's essential, and where art, you know, like our theater, for example, is like, there's going to be the last thing that comes back. Which I don't totally wholly believe. I think in the, you know, like in terms of people gathering inside, but I just mean in terms of like people's need to watch themselves or other, you know, to watch each other so that they can learn. That's been around for 2,500 years, and that's not going away. Yeah. So sometimes I get really down, and then, you know, because this has been super challenging. But then in some ways it's easier because, you know, everybody's going through it. It's harder when it's just you, right? And you feel like you're, you know, Annie and Marvin, who your school is named after.
Yes.
Annie, they were wonderful. And Annie could barely see. Like, she couldn't see, but she could see, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, she just knew what was really good. And you could believe her. And I remember her just saying, you know, like Marvin could go out on the street with a sign around his neck and say, gas me, you know, and a lot of people feel like that, you know, waiting for the thing that they can be a part of. And I can't say there's an easy way, but I think there are things that, you know, that you need to develop in yourself, you know, is whether it's a lot of times another passion you might want to develop. Writing is one way, whatever it might be, because a lot of times, like, you know, watching a pot on the stove, you have to walk away, and also it will inform you. Getting in classes for me has been huge. Like, when Hanman recently died, and probably a lot of you, maybe some of you know who he was, and I was so green. I saw in a newspaper that Asif Mandvi had his play Sakina's Restaurant, and he had developed it with Win Handman. And Win Handman had an acting class, and like you could audition and go. And he wouldn't take everybody. And it was strange. He just felt like he wouldn't take you if he didn't think he could help you. And that was early on, but some of the stuff he told me, and this is after I went to drama school. So like I was just always needed to be in a community. I always needed to do that. I still do. And he said, some of the things he said to me, I just think about to this day. Like, he's like, I had come from a school, where I'd been playing all these characters. I mean, I walked out of school thinking I could play a 55-year-old woman. I mean, that's what I've been doing, and,
Yep.
And like the first roles I got, I played a 13-year-old girl. So I was just like, I had no sense of like what I was right for. And there's always this talking about, you have to know what you're right for. And I'm like, do you really? I mean, he just was like, you're a human being and you have it in you that you can't escape being a human being. You can't. So that's all characters are. They're just human beings. And he said, start from zero. Because a lot of times you'll get a breakdown and it has all these adjectives. It's like, I've heard people say, just throw those out the window. You're being called in because you might be appropriate. Who knows? But trying to look like what you think it doesn't work. And it also puts stress on like trying to make someone like you, or the stuff that you have no power over. But what you do have power over is exploring what this person might be, how they might be like you, or how you relate, or maybe you don't relate. Or like, it's just fun to play someone who isn't like you, which I found. So that was really wise. I forget what your question was, but that's how I found my way through. A lot of times is just like, that's why. And then I became a member of the Actors Center, which is like a workshop company of actors that Ron Van Loo and Michael, I got into that, and that's just peers, and you would gather and they would like provide these amazing acting teachers. And that's an amazing company that's been really helped me. And then also I would work with people like Stephen Henderson, or I don't know if any of you know who these people are, but to me, they were like acting gods,
Yeah.
So that's done it. And I think that the writers group just comes out of that same thing of community.
Community and craft.
Like
pursuit of the art itself, and like thinking of, trying to generate as much. And it's interesting hearing you talk about auditions, like making it an offering of you in the role, as opposed to like, I think you want me to be this way. It's refreshing, empowering, which is something you're also doing in your writers group.
Yeah, it's all about empowering yourself. And it's like, I realized like how much, I think I remember because I remember up to that point, I remember how much I was trying to I had an idea of what the character looked like. And then I would try to make myself look like that. And I can still fall prey to that because the breakdown descriptions are so generic, and stereotypical, like it's a stereotype. And to let go of that's just simply because they don't know what they want, but they think that they don't really know, but they, and concentrate more about like what the character's feeling and concentrate on that, and how you relate it to yourself. And then you'll find the gold, and you don't have to worry about whether you look like, whatever you look like is perfect. It's just you're a human being. That's all that people want to see, is human beings.
Human beings, being human beings.
Yeah.
So when you do have to play a human in a play, and it's a new work, and you're, going into rehearsal, maybe it's the first day, what working on a new work, what do you think the task for the actor is? What is your responsibility in the rehearsal room?
Well, I think about my relationship to it now, because I'm treated with a lot, probably just like experience, and I've had a lot of experience. But your job, I think, you ought to be careful. Sometimes you just have to see what the creators want from you. See, some will want to know your thoughts and some won't, and you can do a good job either way. for example, like when I did Giant, I had never done, I didn't do musicals, and I was suddenly in this giant musical. Like it was giant for me compared to what I was used to. And there was an understanding that I realized, oh, musical theater actors aren't asked for the same things. Like there were some who like I was like, okay, let's figure out the given circumstances of the scene and go from there. And it was Michael Greif I was working with, you know, who's fantastic. And
He
he'd
is.
be like, no, you sit down on that line, you stand up, you turn away. And I was looking at him like, really? This is really? But he always kind of noticed my confusion, but he had too many moving parts to put together. And there will be directors who and creators who don't want to you don't need to go tell them all how you feel about what they've written. You don't need to tell them all that. Just your job is to make whatever they create as human as possible. If it's impossible, if there's but you might not be asked. But there may be like some section of the writing you're like, this is for some reason this is just always a problem. Okay, this is a great example of that. So I was doing this Charles Bush play, brand new play, The Tribute Artist, which was I was playing this character who was, I guess you would say she was negative. She always felt like life was, and she had this hilarious monologue, if you want to look it up. I wish we would do a remount of that, like a reading of that. It was a genius play. And she had this she just had her outlook on life was like things never worked out for her. They never, ever worked out for her. And there was a scene, my first scene, the introduction to the character. It was not working. Like the lights would come up and we had the first few lines with the actor who played my son who had just transitioned from being my daughter. It's such a great play. Anyway, it was not funny. It was not funny. And I kept getting redirected by Carl Andros, who's directing, who Charles uses a lot, and just did Lily Dare.
Yes.
And I was like, I didn't know what to do. I was like, I think it's funny. I think she's funny, but this is just landing like a dud with the first. And I just kept trying. And I remember we had this long, and I remember staying late during previews where I thought I was going to be fired. I was like, I can't make this. I can't do it. And I talked to Carl that night, and I remember staying late and going over it, and he didn't know what to do either. And I think and I went home thinking, I think I'm miscast, you know. And I've had this, you know, I've had this feeling, not on New Play, but on something else before. And I walked in the next day, and he had rewritten the first like 6 lines, and it was like bingo, you know. So I think your job is to do the best you can to make it to make it as human and, you know, as possible. And if there's something that needs to be rewritten, either they will recognize it, they might ask you, they might not. In Coal Country, we were asked all the time. That was like actual things that people had said, you know, like these were based on interviews, but now it's put in a play that has a narrative where these people were never in the same room being interviewed, but they were all talking about the same event. And in that, I didn't say anything right away. I personally think it's good to wait a little bit to first see if there's just no way you can get from A to B. You can say that, but you really have to give it some time, I think, because you may be wrong. And the director may be able to direct you into it, if that makes any sense.
Totally.
So I think, and I always think the younger you are, the better off you are not saying a whole lot, because you just don't have the experience yet to, you know, and I've seen that get in people's way sometimes. It's not so much that you shouldn't say what you think. It's just that there's limited time in the room, and just, you know, make sure that you really can't make it work. I don't mean to say be afraid of it, because it depends on who the creators are and what they ask from you. But even in this past situation with Coal Country, I waited a bit and I said, I feel like she needs to say more here. She's really dropping out of the play and everyone is equal. And I really felt strongly about it. And so they reworked it, and then it actually was only like 2 or 3 more lines that were added, but it made all the difference. So that's why you're hired. That's why we need actors. So I hope that's helpful. Yeah, that's been my
Oh,
experience. I'll speak from my experience.
totally. Allow some time and like respond to what's going on in the room. And the path for the actor will be clear.
Yeah.
It will make itself clearer. So then kind of on the flip side of that question, for the playwrights who are with us today who might not be actors, do you have any advice for how they should interact with or lean on best use an actor in the room, especially in a reading or something like that?
I think that, playwrights, I notice they tend, playwrights, sometimes they don't want to say a whole lot because they want to hear what is not working. And the only way they can do that is just by observing. So for playwrights, I mean, I just think that, like, listen to how your words are landing. And if it's not landing the way you intended, you could talk to the director. I think it's always good to go through the director rather than directly to the actor, because the director can also decide that's something that they're not going to be able to do anything with, or I know how to rephrase this that will get, or I know where this actor's process is and they're going to get there. I don't think that they should change this line or change that. So for playwrights, I think, I think it's important I think it's really important to find your director. I've worked with playwrights several times. I worked with this one playwright. I love him. I think I finally worked with him when he found the director who got him. And I'd worked with him previously on 2 directors. I don't really think he did. And I don't think he put as much importance in it as I think. I've always wanted to say to him, you need to work with people who get you, There's a reason why Sam Hunter works with Davis McCullum,
Right.
There's a reason why Carl and Charles work together. There's a reason. So I think that the director is important to find the one who and make sure that they have the same vision you do for what but you'll know that on an interview. So you don't have to just jump at the first person who says, yeah, I want a director. Although, sometimes that's the case because you're like, I just want to get my stuff done. I just want it to be clean. But sometimes you might have a really good friend who's a director and they don't get what you're trying to. So I don't know if that's helpful, but, and then in the room, Heidi and I just did her Mrs. Christie up here actually. So I actually saw Heidi as a playwright in the room, and I didn't treat her differently because my actor takes over in the room. But she would watch and she would listen, and it was just interesting. I think just to make sure that, I think for playwrights, it's like, if it's not working with the actors, that's the main thing, is like, this isn't working. And it's not necessarily, oh, let me just get a different actor who can make this work. Sometimes it's true, but sometimes it's just how you might need to change something to make it flow out of the actors' mouths easier. That's what I think.
Amazing. So it's about hearing the words with actors that you trust, led by a director with no agenda, who just wants to hear the play. Like, we're all in service of the play. If you can find them just in service of the play.
That's impossible. Actors you trust, a director who doesn't have an agenda. I'm like, and who is because how can you trust an actor if you've never seen them before, or if you just saw them 2 minutes in a room and now they're doing your play, That's why maybe it takes long to cast things, but sometimes you can't have that. I don't know if you necessarily need to trust the actor, yet, in order to be able to hear what's working or isn't working.
Amazing.
But I think you kind of have to think they're talented, probably, or you wouldn't have cast
Yes,
them, right?
exactly. And just, yeah, have faith as the playwright that they will say the words and you'll find out what's not working.
Yeah. I mean, those are all just happy relationships. It's just like, it's great when you're creating together. Because really, that's really, there's the play on the page, and then there's the play in the room, and then there's a play in the audience, in front of the audience. There's like these three stages. And it is it's a communal art form. One doesn't exist without the other. And the audience is the final piece. And so, um, yeah, like, it's interesting with plays because they can be done anyway by so many different ways. They can be the one constant in the room, but there's just this magic happens with actors and directors in the room. I don't know. It's like you are creating something together. It's not, you know, which is why I think we all love it. It's so much fun. Yeah.
It's so much fun. It's so much fun. Jennifer just wrote in a great question. Would you recommend having a director for at like a first reading? Like which stage of a play should you invite a director in, would you say?
Oh, um, well, it depends on like, do you want them to just hear the play? Do you want them to, yeah, I mean, that might be just an opportunity for them to hear it, and not have a commitment to them. I'm sure they would want to hear it or at least read it. But maybe, yeah, sometimes like maybe you want to wait and do that first read just with actors and then work on a little bit and then have them to the second read, I guess it just really depends because people have opinions. They might have opinions and you may, sometimes you have to be careful with those opinions that are going to come at you, like as a writer. Like when we run our writers group, I use like the Liz Lerman critical response, which is a wonderful thing to look at because that's why I said that thing about maybe one of the most important things that you can get from a writing group is encouragement. Just them telling you what they like. And that's the first step of her response, her critical response format is just say what you liked. Because when you say what you like, that writer will focus on that, and then being like what prescriptive is like, you should do this, or this reminds me of this. I mean, that's a really hard one to hear. Like if you're writing something original, it's like, oh, have you, like this play I was working on, I was like, well, have you seen the TV show, This Is Us? And I'm like, it shuts you down somehow. And you're like, oh, why bother? And this is already being said and no one's going to be interested. And, so that's just a prescriptive comment, and so you have to be careful how you filter those. And some directors are great, but it just depends. So that's a good question. I couldn't say, but you could have, maybe just say, I'd like you just to listen and tell me your thoughts or tell me what you liked or tell me what's working. So I don't know. But I think that maybe having your own private read first is important. What I've noticed, like with Heidi, or what I've done myself, is I just get a group of actors to read what I've written first. But that's very early on, and then I can start thinking about directors. Yeah.
Totally. And then, so we should probably move into back to the prompt in just a minute. But before, let's go to one last question. And my question for you is, do you have any tips on continuing to create community even now while we're all, virtually distant?
Right. Well, like our writers group, we bumped up the times we're meeting. So we do little write-in retreats like this. This is why I had some prompts. Like we do these. And I guess just, there's so much content online now. I myself have been overwhelmed by it. But I think like, that's what I love about, it's one of the things I'm so impressed with ESPA is how much of a community it is. like doing things like this is great. Um, uh, and for in terms of like creating a writers group, it's really just a matter, and you don't have to know the person that well, and saying, hey, I want to have some accountability for my writing. Can we meet at this time and can I just read what I've written and you read what you've written? Or maybe there's actors who are dying to act and say, maybe I'll invite this person, to come and this person. Um, because that's all I'm doing right now, and I think that the Zoom is like it makes you go cross-eyed just because the camera, but in terms of connecting with people, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about doing a writing group, well, maybe like with you guys now, like you can check in and turn your videos off, but just me knowing that people are writing at the same time, it makes me stay in and stay because that's the biggest challenge for writers. Any writer's book on writing will say that the procrastination and just showing up to the page is the hardest. It's just showing up, and that's what I would suggest. I mean, I think that that's helped me a lot. And then you invariably end up talking about how you're feeling a little bit. I saw this, if I find it, maybe I'll send this little picture of someone like they were like bright red and they were sitting in front of a piece of paper. And then the next panel, it's a little cartoon, is like
Yeah.
some of the color has gone from the person to the page, and then by the end of the cartoon it's all on the page and the person is returned to a normal color. And I thought, yeah, that's what's wonderful about writing. Even if you don't want to be a great, like a playwright, or if you don't want to, it's just a really healthy tool. And then sharing it with other people are going to love what you write. I love everything I hear that people are saying. We need to process those feelings. It's this huge thing. I don't know if any of you feel like, oh, this is normal. Or there's a normalization of it that's like, it's not normal. It's
Yeah,
not.
it's not normal.
Yeah.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah.
If you do find the cartoon, please send it my way
Yeah.
and I'll share it with the group
I
because
have, I saw it on my friends on a Facebook post, and I will find it because it's a great one for writing. I just saw it today, but I will.
wonderful, wonderful. Well, shall we dive into the second part of this prompt? We'll give everyone 10 minutes and
Okay.
then I'll tell us when those 10 minutes are up, and then you can give us our takeaway prompt and say goodbye.
Okay. So
Great.
the second part of this prompt is of your list of lies. Pick one that excite. I have picked three, but you can pick one that excites you the most, and give that lie to a character and have them confess. So you can write a monologue of this person confessing a lie to whomever. Could be to themselves. Could be to the audience. It could be to someone that they're talking to. That's it.
Wonderful. So I'm going to put the second part of the prompt in the chat in just a moment, but I'm going to put 10 minutes on the clock and I'll keep us updated on where we are with our time. So here we go. Happy writing. All right, that's 10 minutes. So 10 minutes of writing. We've done a chunk today already. So that's something to celebrate. So what's the second part of this prompt for folks to take away? This is not for us to write live. I'll be sending it in an email, but I want you to hear it from Mary first.
Okay. So I want you to think of a person you know, either personally or from afar, alive or dead, who you don't like very much. Put them in a place they don't feel comfortable in and write from their point of view. What do they have to say? And who are they talking to? Um, they could, so that could be a scene, that could be a monologue. Um, and I guess you could incorporate it with your lie monologue, perhaps. Um, but you don't have to. That's my takeaway. I like give prompts that like I would want to write about.
And before we started the call today, we talked about how acting and writing characters that we don't necessarily like, or maybe at first are like, oh, this is a human that I already am in love with. So how do you go about generating that sort of empathy? Through exercises like this?
You mean for a role that I might have of someone who might not? Well, I was told a long time ago to try to read a play and make no judgments about anybody. Like, don't judge them.
Yeah.
And I remember it was like Carnegie Mellon. I was doing Chekhov, and I was assigned to Natasha. And I played a lot of people like Natasha. I played a lot of them like her. But I was told to just do that, to not judge them. You can talk about like what their qualities are, but like for example, Christina, like she was not a likable character. That's the Charles Busch character I played. Christina was not likable. It reminds me of the movie Inside Out, sadness. Like she ends up having this great, but she's a drag. When she walks in the room, it's like, oh God, we know people like that. Like they're just so hard to be around. But when you step outside of judging them, and just can, that's why I said right from their point of view. Like there's always a justification. I remember also I also think of the role I played in Horton Foote in the Horton Foote play I did for primary. This character I played was she, Hallie Foote said, she's just terribly afraid of everything. And she had nothing. She was always correcting everything and gossiping about everything, but she never would take any impetus and do anything on her own. It was always about what everyone else was doing. But once I knew like what she was afraid of, it was, I totally had empathy for her and her need for control and order and what scared her and frightened her. So, and then as a writer, as I said with this, I just thinking of this play that I wrote, I totally empathize with someone read it and she's like, oh, and she reminds me of these people, these characters, these women in Park Slope, and she had all these stereotypical things to say that I felt like she just judged someone that I dearly loved. And it was interesting. So I think that, like, I just think like, looking at your judgments of how do you put people? Do you put them in the good pile or the bad pile? I mean, is anyone completely bad or completely good? And if they are, what's their motivation? I'm not saying that everyone needs to be empathized with, but there's always a motivation. And once you get into that, it's easy to relate. So I guess that's why I like that prompt. And I'm excited about.
Yes, I agree. And it's in those like 50 bits that were most human.
Yeah.
I think
who relates to people like successful people, like when people talk about how successful, like we don't relate to people talking about how easy things were for people. We relate to what's hard, and we relate to what they had to overcome. And because that's where we're always overcoming so many obstacles every day. And that's like often I don't relate to people who just seem like everything is easy for them and perfect and they look perfect. I don't relate to that. I relate to the struggle. And I think, you know, so do other human beings when they're watching a play. That's what they relate to. Or you can be playing a character that they hate. But I think as long as you get into what motivates them, then it's fun to play. Your job is not to judge them. Your job is to make them as human, to make them the human being that they are, you know. Even if the character has judged them, which can, I mean, the character, even if the playwright has judged them, you know. Yeah. I think that's, yeah.
My internet or Zoom is going haywire. It keeps shutting off and coming back on. So Sarah, I'm going to let you take over for the moment.
Oh my goodness. I will take over for the moment.
I'm tagging you in.
Done.
Mary, it's been a pleasure. I'll send you an email.
Glorious. So now what we're going to do momentarily is all of us writers here will break into breakout groups. But before we do that, I just want to say thank you, Mary, so much for being here, for sharing all of this beautiful wisdom, these wonderful writing prompts with us. I've gotten so much out of it. I'm so grateful for you always. And it's just been extraordinary. So thank you. Thank you for being here. And we will see you again soon, and have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day and week. Thank you so much. Yay, applause all around.
Thank you. It's always inspiring to talk about this, you know.
And it's always inspiring to hear you speak on this. So I love listening to you. Just listening to you talk about your experiences, and your advice is always so incredibly meaningful. So thank you so much.
Well, good luck, guys.
Beautiful. Thanks, Mary.
Okay, bye. I wish I could read everything you guys wrote, honestly, but have fun. Okay, bye.
Bye, Mary.